I decided I'm going to call that rustic. So we're going to leave it just like that. I've got faith journaling ideas for you today. I'm showing you how to make Traveler's Notebook insert pages from pattern paper, a fabric hinge envelope page, a peek at my vintage finds this week, and I'm going to show you how to make this little bird fly across your page. Here we go, y'all. Well, hello and welcome to Pink Paper Peppermints. My name is Melissa and I am so glad you're here today. We are in week number 3 of the My Heart of Thanksgiving Faith Journaling event. And if you don't know what that is, just take a look on the screen and you can go to pinkpaperpeppermints.com and find out all the details and sign up to join us in the month of November. Well, today we are talking about interactive pages in our faith journals, and I showed you this pop-up that I did a couple of weeks ago, and you wanted to learn how to do it. So today I'm going to show you how to do this with a different page, and you can see that there is a little pop-up mechanism in the back that holds this together, and my book's not sewn together, so it's a little wobbly. But when I'm finished, I'll sew it all together. But this is the pop-up mechanism, and you'll be receiving this in your email if you're a newsletter subscriber. And if you're not, I would say sign up, and I'll be sending it out a couple of times over the next week or so, and you can get that in your email. So what you're going to do is print this out, and what I did was I printed the paper that I wanted to use on the other side so that it would match. And you could do that on both sides. I didn't because the back doesn't really show, but you could do that if you wanted it to match on both sides. And you're just going to fold your little mechanism in half and then fold the little feet at the bottom up. And then you're going to center that over the fold of your pages. And this works better if you use the middle fold so that the paper is all one page, but you can do it with 2 different papers as I'm doing here. I've done that before. This book is very chunky, so you can see that it's not really going to work for me to do this at the end of this insert. You can see how chunky it is here, and I kind of thought that I was going to have to start a new insert, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a second insert for the last 2 weeks of our Thanksgiving journal, and I'm going to use this cover from the first insert as a template, and I thought that I would use my Chicken Scratch that I did last week as the cover. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that, and if you want to know about this Chicken Scratch, and this is printed paper on fabric, you can see my video. I'll link you to it below. So what I'm going to do is just use this as a template, and I'm going to add I've got these paper scraps from the pattern paper from the collection, and I'm going to use those and just kind of patchwork them together to make them the right size to fill in the gaps from this Chicken Scratch Embroidery. So I'm just going to lay these out and use my cover from my other insert and just kind of trace around it to make sure I get it the right size so that it's about the same size as my other insert. And then once I do that, I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew it up with a zigzag stitch. So you can see that I've done that here, and I added some Eyelet Lace on the bottom, which is my new favorite thing, and I will link you to the shop where I get that in the description below. And I used a zigzag stitch all the way around, and then on the front cover I decided to add a quote. I have a quote pinned to my calendar this month that is one of my favorites for Thanksgiving, and it says, "We give thanks for unknown blessings already on their way." And so I found that in an old catalog and decided that it would be the perfect quote for the front of this insert, so I typed it in my orange typewriter ink, which is also my favorite thing this month, and I will link you to that shop below as well. They have colored ink for vintage typewriters. So now what I'm doing is cutting some pattern paper to size for my insert pages, and I'm just using an insert page from the previous insert as a template. And I wanted to show you a little tip with the pattern paper. Most of them can be used vertically or horizontally, and it doesn't really change the look of it, but there are some patterns that look better vertical, or they're designed vertically. So I still think they look cute sideways, but you probably are going to want them to be vertical. So if you want to fold the paper in half and use it for an insert page, I'm just going to show you how I do it to keep that vertical pattern. So here is one of the pages, and you can see that it lacks about a half an inch to an inch on either side. And so I'm just going to go ahead and cut my paper to size and fold it in half, and you're going to see that it's a little bit narrow here. And then what I usually do is just layer it over another pattern paper that coordinates. Now, in this case, this one does not coordinate at all. I don't know why I picked this one up, but I find one later that does. Another thing that you can do is to add pom-pom trim or lace to the side to lengthen your page, or even just sew a strip of another paper to it. And so that's basically what I do. I just use it narrow and then just add something or just layer it over several other papers. And then finally I find a pretty pink paper that does coordinate it with it to layer it over, and that's what I'm doing here. So you can see that that just solves your problem there. So this is the Eyelet Lace paper that comes in the pattern paper kit, and I wanted to show you with this the same thing. When you fold it in half to make a page, if you cut it to size, you're going to lose your bottom scallop there. And so one of the things that I do with this, or what I have done with this kit, is to fold it in half lengthways, which if you have a standard, that you won't lose any of your scallop, and you can just cut that bottom piece off and it's the exact right size. But if you're using a B6 like me, you're going to have that same issue where you've got a little bit of paper showing on the side. So what I decided to do is I went ahead and cut the bottom part off, which, by the way, that little scrap is also perfect for a little note card or to use as a tip-in in your book. And once I did that, I decided I would trim around the scallop and just make the edge a scalloped edge, and that way it would look great layered over another paper. So I just took my scissors and went in and trimmed it. I left a little hint of the brown so that it would match those eyelet lace holes, and then you can see how pretty that looks layered over another paper. So on the back, you can see I left it straight. I think I'm going to go ahead and clip that, but you could leave it straight as well, and it still looks really cute. So another style of page that I wanted to do for my inserts is to use these flashcards. I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and I'm going to take them and lay them out and sew them together in kind of a patchwork page. And to do that, I just put a tiny little bit of glue in the center because I don't want to get my sewing machine gummed up. And then I lay it out on another pattern paper. And you can see that I've done that here, and this is the paper on the back. It's already cut to size for my insert page. And then I just take it over to the sewing machine and use a zigzag stitch and stitch all my cards down. And you get this great mosaic kind of patchwork look. And you can see on the bottom there that I had a little bit of a hiccup with the sewing machine, and I decided I'm going to call that rustic. So we're going to leave it just like that. So the next thing I want to show you is a fun trick with these envelopes, and these are from the My Story, My Song collection. And I have a whole video on how to put them together, and I will link you to that in the description below. And they also come with printed instructions. So depending on whether you're a printed person or you're more of a visual, I need to see it put together person, I've got you covered both ways on how to put these together. But I've got mine all put together here and decorated with some of the labels from the kit, and I've used a silk leaf and some ribbon and then just sewed it all together on my sewing machine. On the back, I found some little pink heart-shaped brads, which I thought looked really cute with this particular pattern. On this one, I just use a little bit of gingham fabric with the labels from the kit as well, and then again those little pink heart brads on the back. So now what I want to do is create a little wraparound page with these envelopes, and I need to attach them so that they'll wrap around the insert pages. And I'm going to use a piece of fabric to do that. I'm going to show you how to make a little fabric hinge, and then you can do this with any card or tip-in in your book. So the fabric that I'm using is just a vintage piece of polyester that I found at an estate sale in a bag of scraps, and I've just cut it into a little rectangle shape. And I'm actually going to have to do these in reverse order than I wanted to do them, because as you can see, if I put the one with the leaf on the front, it's going to smush up against the side of my book. So I'm going to just do them in reverse order and let the perfectionist in me be okay with that. So what we're going to do is lay this down on the back of the envelopes and just make sure that you have enough space in between for that fabric to bend. And I'm using some Fabrifix to attach the fabric to the envelopes. And once it's dry, you can see it's nice and strong, and it's going to hold my envelopes together to create that little booklet page wrap. So once I got my envelopes in my book, I decided I didn't really like that raw edge on the fabric. So I cut some vintage lace to size, and I'm just adding it with some Fabrifix to the edges of that polyester. And once it's dry, I can slip it back into my book, and I like that much better when you turn the page now. So now that our insert is complete, we're ready to get back to our pop-up page. And I had originally thought I would use the yellow, but I decided I wanted to use this pretty brown and blue patchwork. And so I needed a new pop-up mechanism, but I didn't want to reprint the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is take this scrap of brown gingham and just trace my pop-up mechanism on that to get the color that I need. And that's a great way to use those, is just to use them as a template, and then you can use small pieces of paper and scraps that maybe you've already printed out. So now I'm just gathering up some ephemera that I want to use to decorate the page, and I am using the ephemera from the My Story, My Song kit. And I'm just laying everything out on the page and deciding how I want it to be and what I'm going to use for my pop-up. And I decided that I want to make this little bluebird flying across the page, and I'm going to use a transparency just like I did on that last page. So I'm just kind of testing his placement out here. I know that I want to use a quote from one of the gingham journal cards, and that's here. And I've done the same thing that I did with that page, which is I've cut around the scallops to just use the quote part and not the gingham. I didn't want it to be too busy, so I just cut that out. And one of the important things to do when you're deciding on your placement is to make sure that whatever you want on your pop-up is not going to be too big and stick out the side of your page when you fold it down. So you can see there that that mushroom would be too tall if I used that. And what I usually do is use a repositionable adhesive or just a cheap glue or glue stick so that it doesn't stick too hard, and then I just play with it. I put it down, I fold everything out, see if it works, and then once I get my placement the way I like it, I use a more permanent glue to glue down my pop-up mechanism. So you'll just have to play with it a little bit and make sure that you like the sizing and the placement. Here I am cutting the transparency to size, and I'm going to add my bird with a glue stick to the transparency, and then again just test him one more time and make sure that he's not going to stick out the side, and trim off some excess transparency there. And then I'm just going to add this little sign, this little word art I should say, from the kit to another piece of transparency, and again folding it and testing it and making sure that it doesn't pop out the side. And then I decide to trim the top of my pop-up mechanism with some of that vintage lace, and I'm just using some Fabrifix to attach that. And then I'm going to lay out my pieces, and I really wish I would have done this part before I did the pop-up. So take my advice and decorate your page before you do the pop-up, because it's very tricky to do afterwards. But there you have everything all put together now. I sewed around the edges of the mushrooms and sewed on my ephemera, and I think it looks really, really cute. Well, now it's time for Peek of the Week, and that is where I show you some of my fun vintage finds that I've picked up along the way at estate sales and thrift shops. And my first one is something that I am going to use for a little organization in my studio, and it is this Needlepoint Dollhouse. I found this at an estate sale, and I was so excited when I found it. I just think it's so sweet. I can't wait to show you the inside, but I wanted to show you the outside. There's so much detail, little flowers in the flower box, and the curtains on the outside. You see those pink curtains? They actually match the curtains on the inside as well. This is the inside, and this pink gingham room is my favorite. It has lots of little furniture in it. There's a bedroom and a bathroom, and in the bathroom there's even a little potty, which I thought was so adorable. Not only that, but if you pull the little potty out, the lid lifts and the seat lifts, which of course is important. You need that seat to lift. So I just think the detail in it is so sweet and precious. And I want to take all the furniture out and use this for storage in my studio. And when I get that all set up, I will show you a picture of how cute it looks. Here you can see there's a picture over the fireplace, and there's things sitting on the counter in the kitchen. Just so much detail. I just love it so much. So the next thing that I wanted to show you is my favorite Sari silk place that I get my Sari silk ribbon has printed Sari silk ribbon now. This is a polka dot. I also have a black and white polka dot, and I'm going to show you another little pattern in just a minute, and I just love it so much. I have way too much Sari silk now because I cannot stop myself from ordering this, but here are a couple of tags to show you how I use it. I love using it as ribbon on the top of tags, and this one you can see this is one of the printed ribbons. It's got a little design on it here, so I will link you to that below so that you can get too much Sari silk too. Well, if you enjoyed this video, I think you are going to love this one. It is an interactive page video where I show you lots of different techniques using these butterflies. I show you how to do floating butterflies that you see there and string butterflies and all kinds of fun ideas. So I hope you'll go over there. I will link you to that video. Thank you so much for all your support, all your likes and comments. I appreciate those so much, and I hope that you have a week filled with peace and grace, and I will see you next time here on Pink Paper Peppermints.